Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus. Our Woman in Focus today belongs to the field of law. I have this beautiful book from her, and we'll take a close-up of it later on. 50 years of why we serve. Her name is Sarbjit Sangha, and she is our Woman in Focus today. Sarbjit, most welcome in our program. How are you doing?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It is my honor to be here, interviewed by you. I'm doing great.
Tell me something about this book. This was made just recently?
Yes, it was. So last year, this book was printed. It's 150 years of our CMP, and this book was created by our union,
Wow.
NPF. They wanted to highlight all the good work men and women are doing all across Canada to keep the communities of Canada safe.
Isn't that beautiful? The very first time I met a RCMP officer was Baltej Dhillon.
Of course, yes.
Him and I went together to Prince George
Okay.
to talk about his life as a RCMP officer and to talk about my life as a broadcaster.
Wow.
And it was just amazing, and that's the very first time I found out that throughout Canada there is a force called Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Yes.
Now, different divisions in a city would have different police forces. Can you give me a difference between the two?
Absolutely. So Royal Canadian Mounted Police, as we call it, is a federal police. Like it's Canada's police, basically you could call it.
Okay.
Every province also may have some municipality that have their own police departments.
Right.
When we talk about British Columbia, we talk about, if you look at our cities around us, Coquitlam, Burnaby, Burnaby has RCMP, Coquitlam has RCMP, Port Moody has their own police.
And Vancouver has its own police.
Vancouver has its own police, Abbotsford has its own police.
Right.
So some municipality have their own police department, but majority of Canada has RCMP as their police.
So do they work together?
On a municipal level,
Yes.
you are basically, responsible to talk to your mayor and what that city's priorities are.
Right.
You're working with those.
Right.
At a federal level, you are working with, what are the priority of Canadian government, of Canadian people at a
Right.
bigger scale. If we look at BC, there's combined forces,
Right.
Special enforcement unit that was created to address the priorities of BC. So that is basically a unit that is an integrated unit, which we have police officers from all over the different municipalities that
Wow.
come together. Their
work
aim
together.
is to basically tackle organized crimes and gang violence.
Now, that gang violence and organized crime is a huge topic in its own self. I do want to touch a little bit about that, but through your life. So I want to talk to you about you. Why did you want to become a police officer?
I grew up in India in a very small village in Punjab. My journey, I think, into policing kind of started when I was a little girl. I used to watch a TV show, I think it was called Udaan, and there was a female police officer that was the main character of that show. And no, we didn't have a TV at our house.
No.
There was one TV in the whole village, and we would go to that house to watch that show. And it just inspired me, that show. I'm like, I want to be her, because she was the savior for anybody that did wrong to somebody. She was there to protect them. That's where my kind of inspiration came from. But also my uncle, my chachaji, was a police officer in Punjab at that time. He was in Chandigarh, and he was a police officer there. He inspired me as well. But I don't think I would have fulfilled that dream if I had stayed in India, because I knew in India, in Punjab, it was frowned upon that you are a female police officer.
Really?
At that time,
Yes.
it wasn't a respectable job as a woman to be in policing. But I guess as God had his own plans, and I made my way to Canada, so here we are.
Now, your parents took you kids and came to Canada.
I wish it was that easy.
It wasn't.
No.
So what happened?
So what happened, I was in grade 12,
Yes.
and my Nanni ji, my grandmother, finds this family that came from Canada. I was in grade 12 at that time.
Yes.
So about 17, 18 years old. And this family came from Canada, was looking for a bride for their son. So it was an arranged marriage when I was very young. My parents thought, oh, this is great. This family came from Canada. They have, they'll take her to Canada.
Yes.
I think at that time it was just
Yeah.
not it was a really good thing that they couldn't pass.
Yes.
Even though I was very young. So I was married at the age of about 18 years old.
Holy mackerel.
Yes. So that's how I came to Canada because my husband at that time sponsored me to come to Canada.
Was it difficult when you first came here? How was it?
It was very difficult. And as I mentioned, I grew up in a village
Yeah.
where they don't teach you English. Even in my high school, you learn how to read and write English, but you're never speaking to anybody in English. So when I came to Canada, that was back in 97, I was enrolled in English as your second language
Yeah,
classes,
ESL
classes. I took those for about a year.
Yeah.
And before this, so my high school, I was a soccer player.
Right.
My whole focus was to be in the playground.
Right.
And I actually was the only girl in my village to play soccer at the national level.
Wow.
So my family was super supportive. They're like, yeah, as long as you don't mess up and we don't hear anything about you, you can go ahead and play soccer. And we used to call it football in India,
Right.
obviously, right?
Yes.
So, but, when I came and took ESL classes, my kind of thinking changed toward studying and doing better. And I did really well in my ESL classes. And I tell you, those teachers, they were amazing. The teachers, as we always talk about, your teachers can make or break your education,
Yeah.
guide you in the right path. And I
Yeah.
tell you, those teachers that I had in my ESL classes, they are the one who encouraged me, follow your dreams.
Isn't that beautiful?
They asked me, what do you want to become? I'm like,
Yeah.
nobody ever asked me that, right? And I told them, I said, I want to become a police officer. And what do I need to do? And they're like, well, you are going to go talk to this guiding counselor
Right.
at the university, and they're going to tell you what you need to do. So that was the first step. These teachers changed my trajectory in my life. If it wasn't for them, I don't think I would be here today.
Isn't that just
It's amazing.
awesome?
Yes.
So, so now married at a very young age, weren't you expected to then, procreate instead of instead of going into another field?
Oh gosh, yeah. So the pressure was on as soon as I came to Canada that, it's time to make babies now, right?
Yeah.
So even though I was taking ESL classes, I think I was in 7 or 8 months here in Canada.
Yeah.
I was pregnant with my first child.
Wow.
And, but I kept going to school. My passion was there. I needed to learn more. Even though when I was pregnant, I kept going to school. And there were some tough times, adjusting to a new family who had different expectations. I wanted to learn English. I wanted to speak English. I wanted to talk to people.
You were in a country where everybody spoke English.
Yes, but the family at the time was very conservative. They wanted to shelter me. I think they probably wanted to protect me. They didn't know, how I would integrate into this new lifestyle. And they did support me. They did let me go to school and everything. But it was, I would say, a very tough time in my life at that time. My daughter was born, my first daughter was born in 99, September 99. And that changed my life completely, because now I had another human being. I was 20 at that time.
Wow.
Now I had another human being that I was responsible for.
Right.
And I think that even ingrained more in me what I needed to do in my life.
Sarbjit, I want you to pause for a minute because I want to ask so many questions.
Yes.
Because there's so many different areas we can go to. But let me take a short break and come
Absolutely.
back.
Yes.
Get the program paid for.
Yes, absolutely, you got to do that.
Sarbjit is our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Sarbjit Sangha is our Woman in Focus today. So we're talking about a young 18-year-old, married, 20-year-old child, and now you're thinking, hey, did you at that time, even for a second, think goodbye to my profession of becoming a police officer?
I didn't.
No.
I was very focused on
Yes.
that. And my journey had already started as to when I spoke with the guiding counselor. They're like, yeah, you need a GED.
Yeah.
Then you can enroll into criminology program. And, you know, those were basically the first thing you needed to do.
Right.
Then you can start looking into which police department you want to go into and what requirements they might have.
Right.
And so I finished, I wrote my GED, passed it, enrolled into the criminology diploma program. And that took me, instead of, it's a 2-year program, instead of 2, it took me 3.
Yeah.
Because I was also, you know, taking care of my child. I was working 2 jobs at the time as well. I
Right.
used to work in a cannery where you would sort out berries and stuff.
Oh,
and
my.
I also worked in a gas station. I used to work graveyard shift. So I would start at 11 p.m., work until like 7 a.m., come home, sleep for a little bit, and then I would go to college. So it was constant like that for 2-3 years. So it took me 3 years to finish my diploma. And meanwhile, I went to Abbotsford Police and I said, I heard that I need to do volunteer work. So they're like, yeah, we have Citizen Patrol. So I used to go on these ride-alongs with this older gentleman. His name was Jack. Amazing, wonderful guy. He was, you know, as a volunteer, we used to ride in the same car, go around Abbotsford. We would find stolen cars. It was like so much fun.
Yes.
But it continued on. I think I first wrote the Abbotsford Police's written test. I didn't
Right.
pass. I was kind of disheartened by that. I'm like, okay. Then
You
I
did
looked
not
at-
pass.
I did not pass the written test with
Wow.
Abby. It wasn't meant to be, right? But
Yeah.
I kept working and looking into what else I need to do. Looked at the RCMP, and they said you have to be a citizen to actually, you know, be apply to become a police officer with RCMP.
Right.
And I was not a citizen at that time, so that was my next step. I started studying for the exam. It took probably about another 6-7 months before I wrote the citizenship test, passed it. I'm like, okay, application in. So for me, it was like, just okay, what's the next
So
thing?
I mean, you must have a 4 somewhere in your name or your birth date because you're so organized.
Oh my gosh.
You know, you
I
go-
don't see myself as that, but thank you.
You know, everything is like, I have to do this, 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 and this.
Yes.
But this is how life sort of, you know,
Yes, absolutely. yeah.
presents problems and issues in front of you, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So in 2007,
Yes.
that's when I graduated from Regina, Saskatchewan.
Right.
I made it to the academy in
Right.
2006.
Yes.
I was accepted, went through the polygraph, and here's a nugget for you. You mentioned Beltage Dillon.
Yes.
I met Beltage Dillon when I was in the recruiting process.
Uh-huh.
He was the person who did my polygraph test.
No kidding.
He was in that unit at that time. So, you know, how our world kind of are so small, we know all the same people.
6 degrees of separation, my dear.
Yes, so, you know, since then I've known Beltage and we've kept in touch since then. He is inspiration, you know,
He is.
somebody you look up to.
Well, now he's a senator.
He's now a senator, and I'm so proud of him. You know, that's it's an honor for our community.
Yes.
Because he's done so much
He has.
for the generation, for people like me who came after him. He's paved the way for us, right? So we'll forever be thankful for that. But going back to in 2007, I came, so I graduated. That was the most important day in my life, I would
Yes.
say, when they handed me my badge and
Yes.
shook my hand. Because that was 6 months of very hard work. I almost didn't make it at the academy.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is plan A and plan A only. There's no plan B. I have to succeed. I did. Finished graduation. I got my badge and I came back to Surrey. Surrey is my first posting and I've been here since. You know,
Wow.
It's been 18 years
Wow.
since that first time I set foot in Surrey in a uniform. And it's been an amazing journey.
Now, I want to show a picture of you in your uniform, you know, at this point. So
Yes.
we'll have that picture there.
Absolutely.
Must have been a very proud moment for you. The actor who played the role of a police officer in Udaan, have you ever contacted her?
No, because I was 7 or 8 years old
Yeah,
at the time when
Yes.
that show used to come on TV.
right.
Right? So, but that memory is always fresh in my mind.
Yeah,
And
crystal clear.
crystal clear. that girl, like what she used to do in that show. That's always is. So when I am talking to kids in the community, especially girls,
Yes.
that is my goal. I want them to see me as that person I saw on TV that inspired
Right.
me. I want them to see I look like you.
Yes.
And if I can do this, you can do this as well. I want them to be inspired, right? If I can be their mentor, even if it's one person, one child,
Yeah.
that I can, guide them in the right path, then I've done my job.
Beautiful. And I think that is very important. It's very important to have mentors in our community. And I
Absolutely.
think if you can be, because the community is going through such a difficult time, when the community is small, there are less problems.
True.
When the community becomes bigger, there are
Yes.
huge problems. I'm going to take a very short commercial break and come back and talk to you about the community that you are currently dealing with. But let's take a short break.
Yes.
Sarbjit is our woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Sarbjit Sangha is our woman in focus today. So Sarbjit, the community, when I first came here in 70s, was only about 80, 90,000. Now we are busting at our seams at about, what, 500,000 in the lower mainland, and different kinds of people. And I think the problem that Punjab is seeing in drugs and alcohol and gang, we've imported that over here as well. And I feel, and this is my personal opinion, that this issue is huge in our community. As a person who has been in law enforcement, how do you see this issue?
First, I would say that, the organized crime that includes drug trafficking, gang violence, it's always been here. It has never come to this forefront as it has now. And it's not just our community, it's people from all over the community, people who live here. Most of them are involved into drug trade and organized crimes. But what's highlighted, there's more of us here.
Yes.
So that's what gets highlighted,
Ah.
right? So there's
But don't you think-
concentration of our people in this area.
Yeah.
So that's why whenever we hear about shooting or arrest or search warrants, you hear Punjabi names or Indian names. That's because that's where we are. We're all kind of in this area. If the same thing happened, let's say, in a different area of BC where there wasn't a big concentration of Punjabi people, you won't hear their names, right?
Right.
But we do have a lot of players, especially in British Columbia,
Right.
that are from Punjabi and Indian origin that are involved in drug trafficking as well as organized crimes.
Which is very sad because it's a community which is a very hardworking community.
Absolutely.
And for historically, we've come here, we've worked hard, and we've made our money through hard work, not through
Yes.
these illicit drug trafficking.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with you on that. But I think what has happened when we've had, a lot of people immigrate here, they didn't know the language, they did not know the culture of Canada. Their main thing was we need to work hard, we need to make money. And what got neglected was our kids. The kids did not get that parenting that they needed. So parents, went to work. Mom and dad are both working 2 jobs. Kids are at home, especially if there's grandparents at home, grandparents are taking the kids. They don't understand the language either.
Right.
And as the kids are growing up and they're going to high school, they are looking for that pack. They're looking
Right.
for that, who's going to be my group? Who are
Yes.
going to be my homies? And those homies are the ones that are hanging around the schools trying to recruit our kids to go into gangs. That's what happened, and that's what happened 10, 15 years ago, where kids got sucked into these groups. And now you see all these groups that are made up of all Punjabi kids. They're killing each other, going back and forth. It never ends. So where did we go wrong? We went wrong when we left our kids at home, and we did not do that parenting, where we did not sit down with our kids, find out who are your friends, where are you going?
Right.
Have you talked to those parents
Yes.
your kid is friends with?
Right.
When you said your kid is not home, where is your kid? Have
It's
you put them
important.
into sports?
Right.
Have you, that empty space that they have when they're not at school, what are they doing? Do you communicate with your kids? Do you tell them about how hard you're working to keep this household going? Do they understand the value of the money that you're bringing in? When you're working 10-hour shifts, you know, whether it's in a restaurant or somewhere else, you work very hard to bring those kids food at home.
Yes.
You know?
And their favorite clothes and their shoes and all that.
But what's more important than those Nike shocks is 10 minutes of your time with your child.
So, Sarbjit, I'm just going to come back for a few minutes because I think we're going to do maybe another interview with you some other time about, you know, the profession that you're in. Because getting into this profession and being in a country where you were not born, there's a lot of discrimination and racism. We face that on a daily basis. In every profession, we face that. Did you face that in your profession?
I count on my lucky stars, I did not.
Good for you.
As I said, I joined my first posting here, what was here in Surrey. I was the only brown girl in the entire watch that spoke Punjabi. I was highly sought after whenever they pulled over a drunk uncle. Constable Sangha, we need you here, you need to take an interview.
Now, you're also a spokesperson
Yes,
for
absolutely.
Yeah?
Now I've been, spokesperson for Surrey RCMP for the last 3 years.
Yes.
And that's been very fulfilling because I've been able to talk to the community. I've been able to do some education, spread awareness, all the things that are dear to me. What I'm passionate about is if I can teach our kids, our parents, what they need to learn to have, a better life.
Yes.
Because most of our parents are struggling in our community.
Yes.
They don't know where the resources are. So if I can tell them, hey, this is where you need to go, there is help available. And same with kids, there's so many good programs that our CMP has created to highlight the good work that our kids do.
You're right.
And also put them on the right path. So that's what I've been passionate about. And any chance I get to go into the community to talk to them and teach them about all these things, I have the time of the day. Anytime you want to talk about it, I'm there.
I think we're going to end our interview here.
All right.
Because I'm going to ask you to come back.
Absolutely. I would love to come back.
Because there's so many different things that I haven't asked you.
Yes.
The differences between your life in India and the life that you've created here and the life that you created for your children. All that is of interest to me and our viewers as well. So thank you for being our Woman in Focus today.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here with you.
Sarbjit Sangha has been our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back.